Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules. And at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome back to another edition of BOA The Revival. Very excited about tonight's show. It's going to be a fun one. I actually had the opportunity to meet our guest this week up at the Exeter UFO conference, and I met him in the little book nook, if you will, outside the conference hall area in the town hall at Exeter. And I was just blown away by his energy and his joie de vivre. And I was like, I got to get this guy on Binnall of America. He's got quite a story. He's doing some great work, and he's bringing a lot of excitement to the topic and the field. So I really wanted to get him on the show. Our guest is Eric Mintel. He's a jazz musician and paranormal investigator. He's actually played at the White House twice. We'll talk about the White House stuff towards the end of the show. Because people freak out if you even mention politics these days. So we'll get into that towards the end. But he's done a whole bunch of investigations. He's really prolific. If you've crossed paths with Eric Mintel, if you follow him on social media, you see he's doing all kinds of stuff all the time. It's really, he's a hustler, man, and I have a lot of respect for that. I'm like, holy shit, this guy never slows down. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how he does it. So I'm really looking forward to talking to him today. Eric, welcome to Binnall of America.
Thank you, Tim. Oh my God, that introduction. I must be a legend in my own mind. No, it's good to be here, man. I know we met very briefly up at the that festival was incredible, the Exeter UFO Festival. That was my first time there, getting a chance to speak there, which was so much fun. So many cool people there. I mean, the festival, I think this year was probably, I think they had said one of the most successful yet.
Yeah, it was intense. It was like, wow, there's a lot of people here, man. This is crazy.
It was great.
I was involved at the very beginning of it. It was like,
yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah. Back when there was just a few hundred people there. So it was like, wow, this thing's really grown to be something quite impressive.
It was nice. It was a nice boost to the community, which is great, and I love that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's, and like, again, we're in this environment where, God, even 10, 15 years ago, would we even be talking about this stuff as freely as we are now? Whereas people are having these experiences, they're seeing something, and it's amazing, man. And I mean, God, the about a couple of weeks after Exeter, I went down and spoke at the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which is another really cool one. A town of usually about 1,500 people. There was 20,000 people there that day. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's a cool little town, Point Pleasant. It's really nice. I was there. We outsmarted the system in a way, because a bunch of friends of mine went the week before the festival a few years ago, and it was like, no one goes the week before the festival. If you want to go and have a good time in Point Pleasant without the crowds, you go the week before the festival, because nobody was there. We had like a run of Point Pleasant. It was really, really, really cool. It's a great little town, and it's so amazing how I guess we're used to it because we're kind of in this field, but it's just so, like, when you step back and think about it, it's like so bizarre. They have a statue of Mothman like in the middle of town. It's like, this is insane that this exists. This
and something as prolific. I mean, this incident really just was like a one-time incident. Nobody has seen it since. I mean, there have been stories, but yeah, I mean, it was a one-time incident back in the 60s that just captured the minds of America, and so much so that they made this festival the success that it is. And I mean, God, I didn't even get into the Mothman Museum down there. There was, I kid you not, like a mile line of people like waiting to get in there. People were like passing out in the heat, waiting to get in. It was like a rock show. It was like a rock concert. It was crazy.
Yeah. I remember seeing pictures a few years ago because, like I said, we were there the week before, so we could just do whatever the fuck we wanted. Really.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like, but we were looking at pictures like the following week, and it was like, yeah, you remember that statue? We could just climb all over and had run up. It's like there's like a football field long line just to get up to it to take a picture for the festival. It's like, holy crap.
It was insane.
Now, we always start out the show with a new guest with the bio, the background. You know, who is Eric Mintel? How did you get mixed up in all this?
How did I stumble into it? Well, I didn't really stumble into it. I actually, I've always loved the paranormal, and I'm up here in Bucks, or actually down here from where you are in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Just about that's 60 miles northeast of Philadelphia. And this area, like New England, like where we were in Exeter, very, very rich area of paranormal ghost stories, all kinds of weird stuff, UFOs, Bigfoot. So as a kid, and as an only child growing up listening to these stories, mainly from my father, I was like, man, they're, always intrigued by that. Like, and what is going on around here? There's a lot of ties to the Underground Railroad. There's like, last year we had a huge UFO flap over here. So just a lot of really weird stuff. So I always grew up with those stories, and then, but mainly made a life in jazz as a jazz musician, and my parents could always find me at the piano at like 2 years old, 3 years old, at the piano trying to make up my own melodies and stuff. And we didn't have much, but we had a piano in the house, which was mostly in tune most of the time. But they found me at the piano, very creative all the time. And then when I was around 14, I found the music of Dave Brubeck. And Dave Brubeck was a really great mentor to me in life, too. He was... we turned out to be great friends. And Dave Brubeck, for your listeners who don't know who he is, he had the very first million-selling record in jazz with a album called Time Out. And there was a single from that called Take Five, which was actually written by his saxophonist, Paul Desmond. But that was sold over 1 million copies and really put Brubeck on the map in the modern jazz world in the early 60s. So I found his music, and I just had that instant connection with it because I had always been playing, but I was always a melodic kind of player. So Dave was like melody, and he has very strong rhythm. And so I really connected with that, and then learned everything I could about Dave, and then wound up listening to a lot of other players. But so again, made a life of jazz, but always in the background, love the paranormal. There's always those stories that I loved. So to make a long story short, in 2016, I was watching a lot of paranormal shows. And I was also a filmmaker, too. I always did video, and even did I was practicing martial arts, and we were doing martial art kung fu movies and stuff like that. And I was editing, like all the fight scenes and stuff. So I was always a filmmaker that way. Loved editing, and I still love editing. So I was looking at these shows, and I'm like saying to myself, man, I could do something like that. I could tell stories of this area. So I started in 2016. It was originally called Bucks County Paranormal Investigations. But we changed it quickly to Eric Mintel Investigates only because we were traveling, all over the country. People were saying, hey, could you guys investigate my restaurant, bed and breakfast, in whatever? We think it's haunted. And now it's kind of turned into like a paranormal tourism TV show. But we're still out there investigating. We're in the field. And it's not just ghosts. It's as we'll talk about, it's ghosts, Bigfoot, Dogman, UFOs, you name it. So, and we've had encounters with every single one of those. So in 2017, we started doing more serious investigations. And my buddy Dominic Sattel, who I went to high school with, and we used to practice martial arts and all kinds of sports and stuff like that. And he comes into the team in 2017 and says, "Oh yeah, by the way, I might be able to help you with your investigations because I'm a spirit medium." I'm like, what? I never knew that, man. I'm like, we knew each other all those years. And this was like 29 years later that we kind of like parted ways. And then he came back in after a while. And I think it was probably stigma back then too, that you didn't talk about, being a medium or anything like that back in the 80s, early 80s or mid 80s. So anyway, Dominic came into the team in 2017. And I'll tell you, man, it's great because he kind of gives us a preview of what we're in store for. Mm-hmm. Because I tell him nothing when it comes to like the like the history and the paranormal history. I keep all of that to myself because I don't have what he has. I don't have those feelings of going into these places like he does. But I also go into a lot of these investigations on the skeptical side because I really want to have that, like, what's really going on here, especially in the ghost realm.
Yeah.
I'm always like, are people hearing pipes in the basement heating up? Is it an animal on the roof? Is it, people outside talking in the street that they're hearing disembodied voices? But you know how it is then. And it's like, but having said that, and then having captured what we've captured on video, I'm a real firm believer now that there's a real thin veil from here to there. And, people are seeing it, hearing it, and experiencing these things. So, and I always blame Dominic. I blame because within 20 minutes of an investigation, stuff is happening. And Tim, I kid you not, man. I mean, we were on an investigation, in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, investigating the Beast of Bray Road. I'm sure your listeners and you know about this creature. It's it's an upright canine dog man werewolf type creature that I had heard of, but never really, put 2 cents into it. I never really thought it was anything real or anything like that. Of course, until we get out to Wisconsin from October 2nd through the 4th of 2021. And it changed my whole perspective when we actually encountered this thing out there.
Yeah, I have that in the notes because this is sort of like a seminal moment, I think, in your career as a paranormal investigator. Talk about this encounter with something unusual out there. We'll put it that way.
Something very unusual. Of course, Dominic is a spirit medium, so I'm like dragging him out to Elkhorn to investigate this thing, which is completely out of his wheelhouse. But anyway, so this was, I'll kind of condense the story here. Our good friend and fan, Ellen Collins, she basically loves what we do in the show. And she had said to me, hey, you guys ought to do a video on the Beast of Bray Road. And I said, well, I would love to do that. I had heard about it and I would love to do that. But, here I am in Pennsylvania. You're out in Wisconsin. How are we going to do this? Who's going to pay for it? Who's going to edit it? I'll edit it. Who's going to? Anyway, so she wound up paying the whole freight for us, flew us out there and got hotel and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I made her the executive producer on it. Yeah. And she's phenomenal. And so we're ever for in her debt for doing that. But she was on the investigation with us. So it was me, Dominic, Ellen, and then Ellen's son, Scott, just the 4 of us. We went out to Elkhorn and then we met up with Lee Hampel, who is a farmer in Elkhorn, where his farm is only 0.2 of a mile from Bray Road. Mm-hmm. Now, Bray Road is why they say the Beast of Bray Road, because that's where it's seen most of the time, crossing the road. People have been seeing this thing upright on 2 legs crossing the road. Very, very strange gait to it. Like when it's on 2 legs, it looks like it's gliding. And then it's on all 4s. It's really fast. But it's been seen primarily along Bray Road. So anyway, we met up with Lee, and I had talked with Lee a couple of months prior to this. And he was all open to us coming out to do an investigation. But Lee used to be a math teacher. In Wakanda, Illinois. He could care less about the paranormal. Never thought once about it. He bought this farm in, I think it was 2011, from his mother's estate. And then in 2013, he started farming there. And his neighbors said, oh, yeah, by the way, Lee, that's where the creature is on your property.
Oh, wow.
And Lee goes, well, I knew Wisconsin was the home of alcohol, but, it's like these guys are serious. So anyway, he didn't put anything into it until he had his first encounter in I think it was 2014. He was pulling out of the driveway and saw these red glowing eyes staring back at him from the field. And when he's staring there looking at it and staring at this thing, and all of a sudden it jumped 15 feet in the air and disappeared. So that immediately set him on this path of what is on my property. So he put trail cams up. The next day he went over to the area that he saw this thing, and him and his brother Fred went out and they saw this 7-pad, 5-toed track that was right there in the field. And they saw a bunch of square tracks around. So really weird stuff. Yeah. But he's got all of these different trail cams all over the place. And he said right away, all this weird stuff started happening. He was getting UFO type lights going through the woods. these weird hair samples that he was catching with basically like they're translucent under the microscope. There's no medulla.
Weird.
Just these weird orbs in the field. He's experienced missing time there. I mean, it's just crazy. So, of course, we're at ground zero now. We're down there.
Yeah.
And we're like, he's showing us. So the night of the investigation was October 3rd of 2021. I mean, there is so much more to this story, but people could go look at it on my YouTube channel. It's the Beast of Bray Road, Alive and Well. Everything from electronic disturbances we had, all kinds of stuff. But the night of the investigation was October 3rd of 2021. We went out to Lee's barn, and Lee was showing us all the rest of his footage and all these. I mean, when I say he's got thousands of pictures of this evidence, it's amazing. He's trying to get the hair samples DNA tested, but they want thousands of dollars to do that kind of stuff, and he doesn't have that. So, so we were in the barn, and I said, Lee, can we do an investigation in the field back there? He goes, yeah, absolutely. Just be careful, whatever you do. I said, okay. He wanted to give me a flare gun, but I decided not to take it. But I wish I did. But anyway, so we went out to this field, and if people could picture this, it's a huge rectangle. This hay field. So the hay had been down at this point, but on either side of this big rectangle was corn. So, and Wisconsin is primarily flat, but you've got a lot of areas that are heavily wooded. But you've got corn on one side, to the right, to the left side of us, corn going up in the top of us, and then corn on the right side of us. And we took four-wheelers to get down to this area, which Lee's calling the bait area, where he's been putting roadkill deer in this area to attract this creature on the trail cam, which he's been getting pictures of this weird thing. So we're down in that area. And again, I got to say, in my mind, I'm still like, we're not going to see anything. We're like,
right.
We're going to go
I'm
out
kind of
there.
the same way. Yeah. I'm kind of the same way where it's
I'm
like,
like,
all right, well, this will be fun, but I'm not going to see a dog man or anything. That's crazy.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. So I'm like, this is going to be a great video. We're going to have a great documentary, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we get out there, and I mean, it's a half a mile to get out to this area from Lee's barn. So we had to take four-wheelers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty long space. I mean, they even, like, Lee's brother Fred even drew an escape map to get away from, like, if you encounter this thing, this is where these are points on the property that you can get to safety. So,
oh my God,
they wanted to give me that. I never even took that. So,
yeah, that's bad luck. You don't want to you don't want to go into anything with an escape.
Oh my God, man. So, and we had just a flashlight and a radio. That was it.
Wow.
No protection whatsoever. Not even bear spray. Nothing like that. So anyway, we get out there, and the first thing, Dominic gets off the four-wheelers and looks up and says, what the hell is that? And here, it was a solid orb of light going over the field. And it was just this, it was about 1,000 feet up, if that. And you could see other planes around this thing, but it was completely silent going over the field. And we're trying to put our heads around what the hell it could be. And as it's picking up speed, you could see other planes around it. It was heading toward this other plane. It did a 45-degree angle and blinked out.
Oh, wow.
So that was weird. And then later on, we looked to see if it was like a satellite or a space station or anything like that. There was nothing like that up there.
Yeah.
So it was really, that was the first thing. I mean, we hit the paranormal lottery this night. Right after the UFO, we hear a howl in the distance, like in the far, far distance, maybe about 300 yards away. Mm-hmm. Then we hear another howl about maybe 250 yards away. And then Dominic goes to Ellen, who's still looking up at the UFO, trying to figure out what it was. He says, are you hearing these howls? And Ellen says, I am hearing these howls. They're coming from over that way, from behind us. Sure enough, the third howl, to me, this thing was so loud, it sounded, and it was definitely not a coyote. It wasn't a wolf. It wasn't an owl, fox, anything like that. This to me sounded like a man. Everybody that we've let listen to this thing, it sounds like a man screaming in this field. It was this low, guttural scream, growl, yell combination. Now, wow. just to paint the picture even more, when we have little lavalier microphones, right, that we have to put for close miking,
right.
It was so loud on site that's what it did. It picked it up that loud on our little microphones. We had no high-tech microphones or audio or anything. So I left that in the video so people could hear that. So immediately we're freaked out, but we're going, the fear factor was there, but it was like, what are we hearing? What is this?
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what it is. Then a weird mist started coming up from the field that we were in, and it started messing with our audio. It was this weird fog, like an electronic fog.
Yeah.
Now here's the other thing that I found out later, that this weird mist has also been associated with Bigfoot sightings.
Oh.
So it was insane. So then the reason what got us out of there was that Dominic goes, shine the light over to the field or to the corn where we just heard those howls, where we heard the howl. And Scott shined the light over to the corn, and this thing's supposed to be 6 to 7 feet tall. There, over in the corn, you see eyes going back and forth like this.
Oh, Jesus. In
the corn, these big yellow eyes. And we said, okay, that's it. We're out of here. So to me, it was saying, get out of here. This is my territory. Get out of here. So we did. we booked it out of there. We beat feet out of there, man. And it was like, Lee couldn't believe we were back so soon. He was like, what? What the hell happened? He's like, well, there's something out there. And I wasn't going to mess with it. People were like, why did you guys come back so soon? I'm like, we had no protection. I wasn't going to sit out there and figure out what it was going to do. I mean, although you haven't heard any stories of, this thing like attacking people, but I didn't want to be the first story of this thing doing that too.
Right. And the idea also is like, you don't hear the stories about it attacking people because they don't make it out to tell the story. So. Exactly. Yeah. So that's a good point. But yeah, man. So we got out of there. We went back to the hotel and we recapped what the hell just happened. And then this is crazy, Tim. The whole town of Elkhorn that night lost power. Oh, weird.
It was so weird, man. But there is so much more to this, though. Earlier in the day, Scott he's a drone builder. He builds like these really cool high-end drones. He has to wear those the virtual reality glasses that those guys wear for those things. So we're going in that field that we were in that night. So we're going over the field and we're going over to the bait area. And as Scott's following us on the drone and looking at us, from above, and in one section of the field, we disappeared from his screen.
Weird.
Digitally. I mean, we were still there, but we disappeared. So I'm wondering if there's any, there's a lot of high energies around the world, those ley lines and things like high strangeness areas.
Yeah.
I think Lee's property is one of those areas, man, because he's been getting like shafts of light, orbs, light continues, right? But he's getting these finger-sized points of light that are showing up in this area where this creature is. So it's crazy, Tim, man.
That's wild.
There's so much more. But here's the thing.
People can see that on the YouTube.
They can see it on the YouTube. And then we did a follow-up, and we did a follow-up in April of 2022, which was 6 months later. Now, we didn't encounter it that time, and I'm glad we didn't, because not only for safety purposes, but people would think we were faking it if we encountered it again. Since Josh Gates was out there, and they hardly got anything out there for, when they were out there. And a lot of the paranormal, like the Travel Channel shows, haven't gotten much of anything. We got there, we got everything in like right away within a half hour. And I think it was probably because it was a small group of people there. You've got these huge crews that are out there. It's, you could be, these things sense that kind of thing. So, but we did this follow-up in April of 2022, and we didn't encounter it, but we did have a town hall meeting where over 140 people showed up to tell their story of seeing this creature.
Wow. And
they all described the same thing of when it's walking on two legs, it looks like it's gliding. And then when it's on all fours, it looks like it's really fast. We went over to the field where we heard the howls, where we saw the eye shine, and we saw these weird like square tracks too in the field that was there. And but we were in the field and we had our hotel room keys in our pockets. We went back to the hotel and they were all demagnetized.
Oh wow!
So that was really weird. So that was again, it tells me that, man, there's some kind of like real weird high energy out there somehow.
Yeah. Now, do you think this is a genuine creature or some kind of manifestation of the energy?
That's a really good question, because there is a picture that Lee has on his trail cam that it's basically, it looks like this weird black mist, right? That comes, that looks like it's manifesting into the trail cam that's hovering over this deer. Then in the next 30-second picture, the mist is gone, but the deer's moved.
Oh, wow.
So it could be right, man. This thing could be I always thought maybe it was coming in and out of portals, maybe.
Right. That's the other possibility. Yeah.
I mean, as crazy as that sounds, but we're talking about this kind of stuff because there is high probability of these things coming in and out. Even with Bigfoot, we did an investigation in the New Jersey Pine Barrens about, Bigfoot, and we brought Dominic down because, talking about the paranormal aspects of this, and could Bigfoot be a ghost? Is that why people can't see him, or he's there one minute and gone the next? Or is it a portal? Is he coming in and out of our reality somehow?
Yeah.
There's so many. I mean, you can go down the rabbit hole of like all this stuff,
all the different theories for what these things are. Yeah. But there definitely seems to be, in my mind at least, some kind of paranormal element to this, because just in general, I've heard. Always, I want to give a shout out to the late great Linda Godfrey, who put the Beast of Bray Road literally on the map.
Oh yeah.
But I remember talking to her years back, and even she was like mystified. She's like, "This shouldn't be possible that a dog can walk just by the way their legs are. It shouldn't be possible." So even she was like, I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how this is possible. So it does make me wonder if it's like a very brief manifestation kind of thing rather than like an actual creature that walks around on dog legs, because that doesn't seem even feasible.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think, and this thing is supposed to be going back to the 30s too. This goes back to like 1936 when people first encountered this thing. But then you had a long period of time that people didn't talk about it. But I think it was still going on. But I think it was one of those things where people didn't want to talk about it because it had that stigma attached to it. Oh, these people are crazy, until Linda came on the scene. And God rest her soul, she put it in the minds of people again, because people were having they were seeing it again.
Yeah.
It was so, and I thank God she documented that, man. And some of the people that are, still encountering it to this day. I mean, I talked to Lee just a couple of weeks ago. He said the screams are still happening there.
Wow.
So, and the weird thing was, a day after that first investigation, I had gotten a call from a state worker in Elkhorn who, after we had our encounter, he said he confirmed the whole thing, because him and a coworker were go on Bray Road fixing the power lines. They got out of the truck. He heard the same thing, but he described it as a like a wild pig sound, like a pig that didn't pitch. It was monotone, and it just kept going. And that's kind of like what ours was very much the same thing. It was monotone. It didn't pitch. But it was so weird, man. I mean, just there's so much more going on out there. We did get permission now to investigate the 185 acres that's surrounding area there. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be doing that. I'm hoping that we can get out there sometime next year.
Now, when you do with the creature, I guess you could say investigations, you don't necessarily bring all the. Do you use any ghost hunting equipment when you do a ghost hunt, or you just kind of go and get on vibes, if you will, which I actually think is probably, I've seen the ghost equipment. I'm not blown away by it.
I'm not a fan of the ghost equipment at all. The thing, we don't use any of that. We don't use spirit boxes. We don't use REM pods, anything like that. Only because, and no offense to the people that do, but it's, and the people it works for them. It does. I just feel like the spirit boxes, for those of your listeners that know what that is or may not know, it's this thing that just puts white noise out.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to get a disembodied voice in the white noise of that when you're asking if someone's there. But the only problem with that is that will pick up a CB radio sound. It'll pick up something in the airwaves that, that could potentially be another person. Same thing with REM pods. That we don't use, and also your equipment also that you're using will set these things off. Like the REM pods could set off with your camera equipment right next to it. So we try not to use that. We use Dominic and our other psychic medium, Julie Krause, who's phenomenal, and then go in with that open mind. And also, I go in, like I said before, not expecting to encounter anything. You know,
Yeah.
when you have those expectations of trying to encounter, and then you're disappointed. You know, but if you go in with an open mind, like not expecting anything, and then stuff happens, you're like, whoa, there's something going on here. You know,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
that's happened several times.
Yeah. And I mean, more power to the people who use the equipment. I've just never gotten anything through it where I'm sure if I used it and like something astounding happened, I'd be like, all right, I'm all in on equipment stuff. But to me, it's just like, I'm always just kind of like, I don't know, I'm not tech savvy anyway. So it's just kind of like, oh, I don't, all right, hold this thing now, like up in the air. And
right.
Ghosts coming through. Like, I don't know, something about me. I'm inherently skeptical about a lot of this stuff. Now, this is sort of an off the wall question, but I was thinking about you today, getting ready for the interview. This show is going to drop like late November, early December. So for folks listening now, they'll know of the previous episode from our Halloween Spooktacular, which is between you and me and the people and the CIA listening right now. That'll drop next week. So, but the point being, I don't know why I'm doing all this backstory. Our guest is drag queen, paranormal investigator extraordinaire Monique Too Soon. And I was saying to her, it's what she's doing is very unique, obviously, but in a different sort of way too, where it's like she's bringing this energy, this persona to the haunted location. It's like everybody wants something from the ghost. She's like bringing a show to the ghost. It's like a complete reversal of the energy. So what I was thinking about you, and you're an accomplished jazz musician. Have you ever gone to one of these haunted locations and sort of like performed for them, for the ghosts? Like go play the piano and then be like, hey, I'm here to, I'm have an offering for you. Because like these ghosts, like I was saying to Monique, it's like, can you imagine you're a ghost in the haunted house, haunted location every weekend? There's these people dressed in black coming through, talking to you with the same questions. And then here Monique rolls in. And it's like, holy shit, is that a drag queen? It's like, oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? And then the ghost, you pique the interest of the ghost. So I guess taking her artistry, applying that to what you're doing. Have you ever considered that or done anything like that?
We haven't done anything like that, but one of the things that we have done is when my jazz quartet does play these like concert halls and things like that, the people would say to me, I wouldn't even ask. And this was even before I started my show. They'd go, oh yeah, by the way, the place is haunted.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's interesting though. That would be actually kind of interesting. Because, look at it this way, it's all energy, right? Energy. And I think the fact is that, the ghost or whatever's there is going to feed on that energy.
Right.
And it's certainly in my jazz performances and being largely self-taught, we are, we play, we're basically drawing off of the energy from the crowd that's there. There's a real electric thing that happens there. So I wouldn't doubt it if something like that could happen, or you could connect with spirits that way. I mean, there have been times here, even at the house, I was playing my keyboard here in my piano, and I was playing a melody. My girlfriend said, "Oh my God, that was so beautiful. Could you play that again? I want to videotape that." I said, "Yeah, okay." And my mom had just passed away, maybe about 2-3 months prior to this. So I'm sitting there playing, and all of a sudden, on the camera, she gets this orb that comes over top of me, this huge orb that just goes flow. And it wasn't dust or anything like that, but it was just this thing came in and out, and it was just wild. So, who knows what that is, but no, that would be definitely interesting. We actually, speaking of that, my original concept was, and we actually did a sizzle reel for doing a TV show where my jazz quartet would play at these wonderful, concert halls.
Yeah.
And then, we get done, we get a great crowds, cheering us on all night. At the end of the thing, people leave. We go back and investigate that venue. But the problem is the guys in my quartet, they don't want anything to do with the paranormal. That's why I got to bring Dominic. They have nothing. They have no interest in that at all. So, So it's, but that's why we bring Dominic out. But it was actually a cool concept because, the fact of the matter is a lot of these energies are residual energies that keep going,
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Give that a shot next time you do.
I'm going to try that.
One of these these really reputed, the places that are that have these ghost tours all the time. I feel like that would be the ideal sort of place because, as I said, the ghosts are probably
got an idea.
Yeah.
Got an idea. We got something.
So you went looking for Bigfoot in the Pine Barrens. Did you?
Yeah.
What was that like? Because that's a pretty scary place in general. So,
well, Tim, again, we went out thinking. I went out with this mindset of okay, well, we're not going to see anything. We're gonna, it's going to be a great documentary, blah blah blah. But we were going out with two Bigfoot researcher friends of mine, Eric Spinner and Art Mack. And they had been getting reports of these 5 to 6 foot tall, hairy creatures going in and out of the woods into people's neighborhoods, taking the garbage out of the garbage and going back into the woods with it. And so they went down there and they were getting tracks. They casted some tracks. They got some hair samples, some really weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, and then some trail cam pics. So we decided Eric said, let's go investigate the area that this has been happening in, this area called the Bowl in the Wharton State Forest in the Pine Barrens. Now, if your listeners obviously know about the Pine Barrens, the New Jersey Pine Barrens, thousands and thousands of acres of just dense forest, right?
Yeah.
Nothing's there. I mean, where we were, you can't even build a house on it. It's this iron, sandy soil, iron pyrite in the soil, swampy area. But we were about 5 miles into the Pine Barrens. And keep in mind, this was a week after we got back from Elkhorn.
Oh, wow.
So we're still jumped up on this. So we go down to the Pine Barrens. And again, I dragged Dominic out again. So it was me, Dominic, Eric Spinner, and Art Mack. And we went about 5 miles in by truck into the Pine Barrens. And we got out of the truck and I guess we went about 600 yards into the woods and set up base camp. And just for an experiment, I showed people, we had a little bit of light that we were using our night vision with. Yeah. But in the video, I showed people, this is what it looks like. And we shut the light off and you couldn't see your hand in front of your face.
Right.
Completely pitch black down there.
It's got to be unsettling.
It was actually, you know what? I felt safer in the Pine Barrens than I did in Elkhorn.
Yeah.
So, but no, we were down there and this area is just like it sounds. It's like bowl. It's like up high on either side and then it's low in the middle. So we set up base camp in the middle and we're sitting in a circle talking to Art and Eric about their research. Also joining us was Eric's wife, Heather, and Eric's daughter, Anastasia, who was actually working the camera for us. So long story short, Dominic and Art are talking and all of a sudden we hear a whoop coming from the woods. And I had always laughed when I saw those Bigfoot shows because those guys are always whooping and hollering. And I'm like, is that what they sound like?
Yeah.
But I'll be damned if that's not what we heard, right? So we stopped and Eric had these high-powered microphones going. And sure enough, it caught it. But then Heather, and we got this on video, and people could see this on the video as well. It's plain as day. Heather goes to answer it back. So she whoops first. And you could hear this thing in the background in the woods whooping back at her twice.
Oh, wow.
And it was answering her back. It was incredible, man. So there was something there. And then we heard it going away. It kept whooping, but it was going away and away, farther away. And then you could hear a big rustling sound behind us, like something was going after it. Like we were thinking maybe it was the mama Bigfoot or whatever was going. And then it kind of went away. But I'll tell you what, man, it was just, and a lot of people think, oh, wait a minute, the New Jersey Pine Barrens, isn't that the Jersey Devil down there?
Right.
It's like, I always had a problem with the Jersey Devil and not to piss any Jerseyites off, but just kind of like, that I thought it was always a misidentification of Bigfoot because the Jersey Devil, yes, it has the winged component, but people have seen this as big as a winged horse. Yeah. Or they've seen it as small as a turkey or a mid-sized dog, But the fact that we got this evidence and we've got other stuff which happened just last year is, oh my God, it's just crazy, man. I mean, that what's out there. And then last year we did a follow-up on that investigation from 2021
Mm-hmm.
We were trying to get it together earlier than that, but everybody's schedule was crazy. But so last September of 2023, we did this investigation, and my God, we even got more evidence that night. Art now is going through some cancer treatments. He's got to take medications he's going through cancer. But to look at him, you wouldn't think anything's wrong with him. But he's got to take this medication, and we're sitting in base camp again, same area, same spot. Eric didn't want to go to the same area because July of 2023, they had wildfires down in the Pine Barrens.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were sitting when the fires were happening where we would have been on fire. That's where the fires were. But when we got there, it was all over with. But the trees were charred, and
it's all messed up. Yeah,
it's a beautiful cedar swamp. But it was starting to come back again. But anyway, Art's sitting there, and he goes, "Guys, I don't know if it's the medications I'm taking or what, but my heart is really racing right now." With that, we hear a cracked branch behind us. Right, we flip the camera around. Everybody turns around, and here I see a branch just going crazy, like something just hit it. And then for 2 seconds, I saw two yellow eyes about 7 feet up that then disappeared. And you could hear this big thing going back into the swamp. So, and we caught it on video. And it was like, oh my God, what the hell was that? And then poor Art, man, we didn't even bother to check on him. He got a face planted. We didn't even, but he was okay. He was fine. He was good. But it was crazy, man. That whole night, we were getting all kinds of weird red pinpoints of light in the woods. Like some kind of things were looking back at us. Very, very weird. So
that's really weird. Yeah.
What scared me the most, though, was when these 4 guys came in a pickup truck, and they're like, the Pine Barrens, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing down there?"
Yeah, that would scare the shit out of me.
And Eric,
strangers, people are scarier than the creatures. Yeah,
yeah, because you're in the Pine Barrens, man. That's it. You're done. But so Eric goes, "Oh, we're looking for the Jersey Devil," and the guy goes, "Oh, did you find it yet?" And the guy's like, "No, we're looking for it." But anyway, these guys were looking for these 4-wheeler guys on ATVs that I guess were harassing them, and they thought they were us.
Oh, God.
And it wasn't us. So anyway, I said to Dominic, I said, "Let's get the hell out of here." So we did. We beat feet out of there too. But yeah, I mean, we got a great video out of it. We're going to try to go back again, maybe next month. We're thinking about it. But if we don't do it next month, we might do it in January because just so much is going on.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting with the Beast of Bray Road and this instance. In a way, it is kind of like what I was talking about, where it's like you're like drawing the attention of whatever is out there.
Yeah,
your presence in the thing, which is a lot different than a ghost hunt where you're kind of going to. And you're kind of looking per se, just try and draw it towards you. In these instances, it seems like it's more you're already drawing it, maybe because you're so out of place to whatever this thing is.
Exactly, and I always blame Dominic.
Yeah, he said that.
It said I always blame Dominic. I'm like, Dominic, it's your fault. Here's the thing I forgot to mention too. In Elkhorn, when the power went out in Elkhorn that night. The next morning, I woke up and I looked on my hotel room floor, and I must have brought a stick back from Lee's field, and I showed it to Dominic. He's like, "You brought it back with you, didn't you?" So, it was nuts, man. It was just crazy stuff.
And what does Dominic usually do? Is he just kind of like he gets a some kind of sense or a feeling, and he tells you like, oh, like what does he say? How's this kind of work, if you will?
So Dominic basically, as he says, that he could see spirits. He talks to dead people. Okay, so he'll have like if he's looking at you, he could see a spirit around you. Maybe it's a loved one. Maybe it's somebody that from your past or somebody that has passed. So he's got that kind of ability where he could like see that. Why we brought him down to the Pine Barrens was that fact of like, what are the paranormal? What is going on down here that is manifesting this energy? So, and we still left with more questions than answers about it. But that's what he does. And then, when he does spirit readings, he'll sit down with people and like immediately draw on what these, and they won't say anything to him, but they'll draw on what who are with these people, what spirits are with these people. And when he says that to people, they're blown away because it's either a grandmother or a father or a mother. And these people, and then he brings out a name too. And that's another thing that's really cool. what was really cool, just a couple of weeks ago, we were up in Connecticut doing a premiere of a video that we did up for the Old Lyme Inn in Connecticut. And there's also an awesome jazz club there too. So we've played there as a quartet, but Dominic and I did this video for this place, which is crazy haunted. But when we did the premiere, Dominic was also doing spirit readings, and a woman came in and sat down with him. And she sat down. She's like, she looked like blasé, like, okay, this is bullshit. You know, what's going on? So anyway, so she sat down, and Dominic is, starting to talk about his spiel, what he does. And then she goes, well, you only do people? And he goes, well, I do animals. And she just gets a little more attentive. And he goes, I'm actually sensing a very large animal with you. And I'm thinking it's a horse. Well, turns out she started almost breaking down in tears. She owns a horse farm.
Oh, wow.
And he said, and you're here, one of your favorite horses just passed. And that's exactly what she was there for. She wanted to talk with him about this horse her favorite horse that just passed, to see if there was any connection there. And there was. So it was really cool that way. So he, I don't know how he does it, but he does this. He has this ability. And that's when he gets to a location, a lot of times, whether it's, Bigfoot, ghosts, or whatever location we're at, we just did this, a hotel in New Jersey, here in Frenchtown, New Jersey. And he was picking up on all kinds of weird energies there. And it turned out that it was a brothel back in the 1800s. And he was picking up on this one woman in the bar that was like the favorite girl of the place, that lived on the second floor. And then we went up to the second floor, and then we all pinpointed the room because of another person who I talked to previously that Dominic didn't know about, that said this activity was happening in room 204.
Yeah.
And Dominic zeroed in on 204 without even knowing anything about that.
Oh, wow.
So that's in the video as well. So it's pretty cool that way. So again, I don't know how he does it. He's had this gift since he was around 3.
Yeah.
And he's had the veil, they call it. It's a veil. So it's a really interesting thing. And our other spirit medium, Julie, she's a psychic medium. She actually, I think she sees pictures also. So she sees pictures and then puts the puzzle pieces together. And it's amazing what they do. And I have the utmost respect for these guys. And, again, they're giving us that preview before we go into these places to see what we're in store for. I am always subscribing to the fact that, look, if a place is being haunted and, movies and TV, they want to make it evil and they want to make it scary and all that kind of stuff. I don't see that. I see that if they're there, they just liked being there. And it's like, or maybe they know they shouldn't be there, but they just like it there. And then, so we've been seeing a lot of that happening lately. So it's amazing, man. Love it.
Excuse me. Do you have a preference of would you rather go look for a creature or a ghost?
I like it all. I'm fascinated by it all.
Yeah.
When we were in Exeter, I wanted to go investigate that area up there.
Mm-hmm.
Just to.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah, if you did any looking around.
It was. Well, here's the weird thing. My girlfriend Sherry was there, and we went on the tour on the Exeter tour that the trolley tour.
Yeah, the trolley ride. Yeah.
So to take people to the site of the incident. Well, as we're getting toward the area, she gets this weird feeling, this tingly feeling, and she knew where the site was.
Oh, wow. She
knew before the guy told us where the site was. She knew where it was. And right after she had this feeling, we stopped and there was the site. So there was some kind of weird energy there that she was feeling. And I think she's more of a sensitive too. She, she has this, that ability as well.
Do you think that you have any gift just even from being around these folks and sort of, and just, do you think it's come up at all? Do you think it's sort of developed over time from doing these things?
It could be. I'm not sure. I don't really get when we go into places, I don't really get those kind of feelings, but except in this one vampire museum, Tim, this is very, very interesting place. There's a room in this museum that I feel ooh, I got to get out of here. That's the only, it's a doll room. and there's like a Burmese doll in there that's like 5 feet tall. It's got a beautiful Asian face, smile, but it's got real hair.
Oh,
and
God.
the family donated it to the museum because they were having all kinds of weird activity in the house, and they were attributing it to this doll. So they donated it, and there's all kinds of weird marionettes in there, and this clown face, all kinds of weird stuff there. So
where's this?
That's in Doylestown. You should make a day trip and take a weekend trip. Come down to Doylestown to the Vampa Museum in Doylestown.
Interesting.
And he's got the owner, Ed Crimmy. He's got over 700 vampire killing sets.
Oh, wow.
Which are from the 17 and 1800s, complete with chests of like holy water, salt, scrolls, crosses. And I'm saying to myself, why so many? What the hell? What the hell was going on back then? I'm like, I'm always thinking that there's always a little bit of truth to the folklore, right? So anyway, so he's got this stuff, man, but he's got, some of the items in there are so beautiful. But we did this. We're doing a series for him called Paranormal Pickers, but it's now called Paranormal Activity Research Agents, and it's a long title. And this is his baby. But it was the first 2 were under the guise of Eric Mintel Investigates, but now this one is mainly for him. But so we've done two episodes so far, and I'll tell you what, man, Dominic will not go back in there because of what. Oh yeah, because of what happened. We had done in January, I guess it was January of this year. We finished up part 2. We finished up. And so basically Dominic and Julie were on this investigation, and this museum is incredible. But they were being pulled to the barn on the property. There's another barn full of antiques on the property, which is basically just right across the lawn. So they get pulled over there, and they're going up to the top. We're all going up to the top of the barn, being pulled into this one corner of the barn.
Oh, weird.
So we're over there in the barn. Julie goes, yeah, I'm getting this weird feeling like something just fell or something's going to fall. Well, Ed goes, well, a chandelier just fell on me right here, as a matter of fact, right above us, like just about a week ago, and hit me in the head. I got a mark right here to show you. So with that, we hear in the corner of the room, we hear art like that. It just sounded like art. Oh, and it sounded to me like a kazoo. Okay. And it was a weird mechanical kind of sound. Weird. So Dominic then goes, wait a minute, that's the same sound that I heard in the museum by the doll room. I'm like, okay. He goes, yeah, when you were interviewing Julie, I heard the same sound in the doll room. Ed and I were standing there, and I said to Ed, what is that? And he had heard it, but didn't really hear it. And it happened twice. And so I said, well, let's go over to the museum. Let's go check it out. Let's go do a recap of what you experienced there. And let's do that. So about a week later, that night of that investigation, we got saged before we went in. We got saged when we came out. It was just the crazy energy there. Because this was the first time that we ever went into like the demonic realm of things, so we wanted to kind of, I wore my rosary that night, not that I'm a very religious guy, but I have a strong faith,
right. Yeah.
So anyway, we about a week later went over to the museum, and we went over, and Dominic's standing in front of the doll room, and he's standing there recapping what he heard. And he goes, well, to me, it sounded like the batteries in the voice boxes of these dolls when the battery's dying. Well, first of all, I got news for you. There's no batteries in those dolls. They're all older than that. There's no electronics in those dolls at all. So as he says with the batteries dying, we all hear art, just the same.
Oh, wow.
Like right on cue. It was the same thing. It was like art. And Dominic freaks. He said, what the fuck? It's like, he freaked out. So Ed heard it. We all heard it. It was all caught on video. And people can see that now. It's on my YouTube. It's Paranormal Pickers. That's on part 2, but there's part 1 and part 2. But I'll tell you, man, we freaked out, and I played it a couple of times so you could hear it. But it's the same sound. It's just like, it's so weird. So we freaked out and don't know what it was, but it's something to do with something in that room, because a couple of weeks ago, I was doing a book signing for my new book that I have, and a mother and daughter they came outside and they said, "Oh, we took some video inside in that doll room, and this is what we got." And I'll be damned, they got the same sound that we heard.
That's so weird.
As they were talking to this thing. And we know it's not any kind of like electronic thing in the museum or any kind of sounds of anything like a pump or something like that. There's nothing in there. So I couldn't believe it. I got goosebumps when I heard it. I was like, that was exactly what we heard. So there's something to be said about, there's something in there. So again, here's the thing. We never did an investigation in the museum. We were always just in the barns. So that's going to be part of part 3 is going to be an investigation in the museum. But Tim, I got to tell you, man, we started shooting part 3. Ed meets these really interesting people, man.
Oh, so sure.
Ed, all of a sudden, this dude, we're shooting part 3 in the museum. This dude shows up who says he's from the Order of the Vampire, right? Which is a religious sect of vampires.
Yeah.
And he's looking for a document that's supposed to be in the museum.
Oh, God.
And Ed's like, well, I don't have it. I don't have anything here like that. Well, the guy's like getting really belligerent, and Ed tells him to get the hell out of there. So then he comes back with a buddy of his that, I kid you not, has real fangs.
Oh, my God.
I mean, like,
Jesus.
Literally.
Is any of this got on film, or is that?
Oh, yeah. Got it all.
Oh, nice.
Got it all on video. My buddy Tom was filming the whole thing. Even the altercation that Ed had with the guy with the vampire teeth.
That's so weird.
We got it, man. So then we had to go meet Ed. In one section, we had to go meet a guy. Ed meets all these weird people, but they're in all weird locations. So we had to meet this guy in a graveyard for this document that Ed needed, that he knew where it was, but he knew who had it. Anyway, so that's going to be in part 3, man. But it gets weirder. I mean, it's getting weirder. It's getting really weird.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's coming up. But I've been, and look, the museum is so cool. And the museum, and Ed says it too, is not glorifying evil in any way. It's basically, the museum is about the battle between good and evil, because you've got this dark energy when you're going in the museum at first. And then when you're leaving the museum, there's Michael the Archangel room that's there. Mm-hmm. So it's basically like cleansing you, and the good wins over evil, you know? Oh, so it's a pretty cool, it's a great place. And oh my God, but Dominic won't go back. He won't go back in.
He won't go because of the sound.
Well, he also said that something felt like, and he said that something was reaching out to grab him.
Oh God.
And he felt like the tingles and felt something on his shoulders. And so, yeah, it's freaked him out. And I know him so long. I've never seen him act like that. Yeah. So for him to get so crazy like that, there's something profoundly that happened to him. And that's the other thing too, when we're interviewing witnesses for a lot of these cases, which I'm really thankful that a lot of these people come up on camera and they're not afraid to tell their story. Yeah. I'm pretty good at discerning the truth from the BS, but when these people are telling me stories of their encounters of these things, whatever it is, they're having these they're having a difficult time getting it out. Their voices are cracking. They're getting goosebumps. So you look at that, and as a detective, you look and say, wow, these people have had some kind of profound effect. This of something has had a profound effect on them. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they experience this thing, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a life-changing experience for these folks. So yeah, well, it's very it can be traumatic. It can really be traumatic. It's I imagine. I've never, thankfully, haven't had anything like that occur to me yet, because it's always like, oh, I'd love to see a Bigfoot or whatever, but then I hear these stories. I just did a story the other day about this mailman who saw one like in Illinois, and he's like, I just keep playing it over and over again in my head like all the time. It's like,
wow,
that sounds almost like a curse more than a blessing. So,
well, I think also, you got a lot of people that are doing research on the computer, but the other thing is we're out in the field. You have to get out in the field.
Absolutely, yeah.
Boots on the ground investigating is where it's at. And I mean, we put ourselves in some dangerous situations, and but that's the thing, though. We're getting that evidence on video, and just to get this stuff is just amazing, man. And then come to find out later, there's a lot of like dogman sightings all over the country that people are. We did an investigation of the Beast of Bray Road. Now, Bray Road is another little suburb of Philadelphia.
Oh, wow.
And there's been apparently dogman sightings there. Tom Carey, who is he's a ufologist, but he's also the world's authority on the Roswell UFO crash.
Yeah. All right. So that's who I thought you were talking about, but you didn't mention it at first. So I'm like, oh, is it the Roswell guy? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Tom's phenomenal. But I found out later he's also an anthropologist. And he latched on to this dogman story in Bryn Athyn and wouldn't let it go. It really grabbed him. And no pun intended, but it's like, but he wound up getting witnesses that actually saw this thing. And they came up on camera and told their story about seeing this thing. And again, Tim, it's like they're describing what they're seeing in Elkhorn, the same thing.
Weird.
So it's like crazy, man. And we did a video investigation on that, and that was called the Beast of Bryn Athyn.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I didn't even know about this one. This is
nope.
Yeah.
Neither did I. I mean, and we got people, and that's another thing with this thing. And this particular one is more of the portal kind of situation where this thing's appearing from. People had seen this across from this Bryn Athyn College, and it was in this field. And they said it was looking like it was going erratically on all fours, but it looked like it was jumping, like in snapshots, like those old flash bulbs.
Yeah.
It was like that kind of flash. Boom, there it was again. Boom, there it was again. As it was getting closer to them. Then as it got close, it stopped. It raised up on two legs, and it was this bipedal creature. And then it went down on all fours and sped away and disappeared.
Weird.
But people are seeing this stuff, and a group of people saw this. So, we talked to those, and we talked to the main witness there, and she was like real down to earth person. I mean, nothing that's going to make up any kind of stories and stuff, and actually kind of reluctant to tell the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could see that for sure, because even though things seem more enlightened these days, and it is, you still get sort of people who will rib you if you saw Bigfoot or whatever. Do you have? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say there's people that will have they don't want to have anything to do with the paranormal.
Right.
Nope, I don't believe in it. That's it. Nope, and they don't have any kind of possibilities of what the wonder of what's out there. And that's probably more like fear-based,
I would think so. Yeah.
But you have to have a sense of wonder. If we have no sense of wonder in the world, what's the point? I mean, you've got to have that.
Exactly.
And you're right. Earlier we talked about politics and all that. I mean, this whole freaking every day it's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. And we just have to either start working together or something, man, because it's just, the division is insane.
Yeah.
And oh my God. But but I love doing the research, and it just fascinates me, man, and what these people are experiencing.
Yeah. Now, do you have, I think it's going to end up being like a standard question, because I really find it interesting for folks who are, I've busted this out a few times. Do you have a bucket list location that you'd like to investigate someday?
Oh yeah, there's always those,
Right. Do you have one? Do you have one that's like, all right, I really want to check this place out?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like one in particular, I'm just trying to think. I would like to actually go to the actual original Bluff Creek Bigfoot sighting out in California.
Oh, that's an interesting choice. Yeah.
Where they actually saw, because I think those guys, and I subscribe to the fact that they saw something that day because they just happened to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a guy in a suit, because there's just been too many tests on this thing. And we didn't have the technology to have that kind of a suit back then. They even did a test with a Planet of the Apes that came out that year. And or the next year actually. And the apes were in a sauna, and you could see the suit was like they're wearing a rug. There was no muscle or anything like that. Yeah. So this thing had some delineation to it. And I just think they were at the right place at the right time. That would be one location. But no, there's the standard locations everybody's already done, like the Stanley, the Stanley Hotel and stuff like that. But actually, I wouldn't mind doing a documentary on Exeter, really finding out more about what happened that night. because I love that story. It's phenomenal.
It's a great story, and it's cool that you can visit and check out the different, like go to where the guy saw the thing. Like you can stand there and look.
Oh, yeah.
And be like, okay, well, I really like that a lot about Point Pleasant too. Like if you get out in the T area.
It's crazy. Yeah. My buddy Steve Ward lives down there, and he's actually, well, you know, Steve, he's actually working part-time in the Mothman Museum. Steve said the other day, he's like, and I saw him down in Point Pleasant. If you would have told me 40 years ago that I would be living on the same road that they had the encounter with the Mothman, I would have thought you're crazy, and working at the Mothman Museum. So it's funny how things come full circle when you're into this as deep as some of us are. But, you know, it's phenomenal. But yeah, no. And then let's see. Yeah. So, and I wrote a book for my, for a lot of the cases that we've been on. I was trying to get this book together for a few years, and I finally just decided, I bit the bullet and did it. Mm-hmm. And it's a great book. It's an easy read. It's Eric Mintel case. Eric Mintel investigates casebook investigations 2016 and beyond. And we chronicled all of not all of the cases, but most of the cases of note, whether it's ghosts, UFOs, Dogman. We talked about a lot of what we talked about today in the book, and some other cases. That just some things that we can't explain that we're still wrapping our heads around, you know? And we always leave with more questions than answers, but, you know, we've been on investigations where, you know, even with the ghost situation, I'm always like, again, I'm on the skeptical side with it, but we were in a 1759 farmhouse, and the owner was Beth, and her then boyfriend, Jacob. She was telling me that every time she went upstairs in this one room, this bedroom, she always got this weird energy that she felt like that something was in there. Anyway, to make a long story short, we did this investigation of the farmhouse, which we did for a video called Hallowed Grounds at the Homestead. Mm-hmm. And we went upstairs, and Dominic was there, and Dominic tuned in on the spirit of this woman named Elizabeth. He got a name. Yeah. Then a story starts unfolding, as always these do on these investigations. And here, Elizabeth that was her room. Elizabeth's husband cheated on her with a worker that was on the property, and wound up having a son with that worker, where their son that they had together died when he was like 2. Yeah. And he's buried on the property somewhere. Oh, anyway. So we go up and do this investigation in this bedroom. I mean, there's a lot more to the story, but we're up in the bedroom, and I'm using the magnetometer. This thing's going off the charts, and there's no Wi-Fi. This is pretty much, it's a refurbished place, but they don't have any like heavy duty wiring or anything like that. They wanted to keep it as original as possible. So we're up there, and the magnetometer is going off the charts in this one corner of the room. Then all of a sudden, a vase of these flowers or whatever it was in the vase moved on this table. Oh, God. And I looked, and I'm like, I knew I didn't hit it, and it wasn't the floor out of whack or anything like that. I just saw these things just move a little bit. So I go to Beth, who was in there. It was me, Beth, Dominic, a couple of other people were in there. And I go, Beth, guys, I don't want to like alarm anybody, but I think I just saw this vase of flowers move. Now, Beth is a designer. Yeah. She goes like this. She goes, I did not put that there. This was not there. I know exactly where everything is. And she's getting more and more agitated, right? Oh, boy. And she's getting more and more and more and more. And all of a sudden, she just stops and goes and starts hyperventilating. Wow. And what happened was the spirit of this woman, this Elizabeth, we say bum rushed her because it was trying to communicate through Beth. And we had to get her out of there. She couldn't even breathe. Oh, wow. And we got it all on video, man. And I said to Beth, we got her out in the hallway. And later on that night or the next day, I said, Beth, you know, I'm a respectable guy. I wanted to make sure she was okay with everything. And I said, Beth, you know, do you want me to keep that on video like that? Because it's pretty horrendous what happened. She's like, oh, yeah, if it happened that way, we got to keep it that way. I'm like, okay. Great. Wow. So there was a lot more that I wound up putting on the cutting room floor. But yeah, and then her friend Renee went up there and just felt the same thing and started crying like crazy. So these two were feeling this high energy. Wow. There was some really weird stuff that happened there. And then we took people, when we did a premiere, we took people on a tour of the house, and they were also feeling this woman that was up in the bedroom. And one woman didn't even want to go in. She was like, I'm out. I'm going to stay out.
I could see that. Yeah.
So stuff happens, and these stories unfold all the time. So stuff like that happens all the time, man. So that's why we tell the stories, man. We got to keep it going.
Well, we saved it till the end here now. So when I met you at Exeter, I was reading your bio, and I was like, hold on now. And I'm like, you performed at the White House twice? This is, to me, like that. I said to you jokingly, I'm like, that to me is almost more amazing than these. Now that I've heard the stories, I'm not so sure, but but to me, I'm like, that is phenomenal. So talk about how you wound up performing at the White House twice. Share this amazing story. I'm sure you have to tell this all the time, but I'm just blown away by it.
Well, you know what? Your listeners will probably be more blown away by the power of asking. I basically back in 1998, I was watching a program one night, and I saw a commercial for the White House came on. And I was at that time, I was trying to see what can I do to take my music to another level? What can I do for jazz to get out to the masses, and reach more people? So I decided, I said, well, why don't I call the White House and see if they have any programs where they could, send musicians around to perform. And I thought, they had this program in the State Department where they would do this cultural exchange program where they would send musicians to different countries and, in a goodwill ambassador type situation. So I thought something like that, or for performing for troops overseas, something using jazz as a positive motivator. Anyway, I called the White House and I said, who could I talk to? And they said, well, you could call the social secretary at the White House, and they're the ones that are in charge of all that. I said, okay. So I wound up calling them, and they told me not this person I was supposed to meet, but the person said, well, what you could do is send in a package of your music and if you have any bio information, anything like that. So I wound up doing that. And I sent a CD we had at the time that we just recorded, and some loose press clippings of some newspaper stories. I didn't even put it in like a folder. I just threw it in there. Yeah. And I put the CD in. So it was a totally unprofessional that way to do that. Anyway, I was on the road one day. This was like maybe in mid-September. So this is like a month later, mid-October. I get a call on my answering machine. It was actually those days when you'd pull off to the side of the road and those little payphones were on the road there. Yeah. You can pull up to. So I pulled up to one of those, checked my messages at home, and hear the White. And I had totally put that out of my mind. I'd never even thought about that. All of a sudden, I get a call. Hi, this is the White House. We would like to invite the Eric Mintel Quartet to perform at the White House for Christmas. And I thought it was a joke at first. And here I called back, and it was the social secretary, and they wanted us to perform for a holiday dinner reception for, as they said, friends, family, and foes of the President Clinton. So it was amazing, man. So it was, I think it was December 11th or something like that of 1998 that we played. And sure enough, there he was. And this was like, it was crazy. What a crazy time, man. I think it was a day after the Monica Lewinsky thing broke. Oh, wow. And then it was a day before he was supposed to bomb someplace. I was just insane.
And so you get to meet the president, obviously, right?
Got to meet. Well, here's the thing, Tim. When the Marine Guard takes you down to the diplomatic room of the White House and says, Mr. President, the Eric Mintel Quartet, it's like a surreal moment there. And he came up. And he was in this room where he meets all the foreign diplomats from all over the world. And so we got a chance to meet him. He was about, I guess I'm 6 feet. He was probably about 6'1" or 6'2". He was taller than I thought. But he came up to me and shook my hand. And I said, Mr. President, Eric Mintel. I said, we have a mutual friend in Dave Brubeck. And he said, Dave Brubeck. I just gave Dave the National Medal of the Arts Award just a couple of weeks ago. And he said I was the only elected official that could hum the bridge to Blue Rondo a la Turk, which is one of Dave Brubeck's songs. Yeah. It's a real difficult thing. But and that was cool. And so we got pictures with him and everything. And so that was just, we left there. It was like, it was just a surreal moment, man. Like right before he entered the room, you got the Secret Service. Yeah. And it was just like, here we are. I'm like pinching myself. So it was really cool. And then, from that point on, we just started doing, actually we played the following year in 1999 through 2005. we would play at the Kennedy Center over 10 times. And I didn't even ask anybody how to get in there. I just was invited to perform there. And so that was really cool. And then my girlfriend said, this is now fast forward 13 years later. My girlfriend, Sherry, says, what about playing at the White House again? Why don't you call the White House? I said, well, that was probably just a once in a lifetime thing. I'll never get back in there again.
Right.
I tried for the Bush administration. And I heard nothing but crickets. So it was like nothing. But she goes, well, try it again. And Obama was in there at that point. This was 2011. And I said, okay. I said, well, so I called. And sure enough, they said, well, what's your availability for December of this year? So this was in October of 2011. And here we are back again in December 11th or December 14th, it was, of 2011. And again, met the president in the diplomatic room. And, and it was just insane. I mean, go downstairs, you're going down there. And, when you see the president, it's like, oh, my God, there he is. When I shook his hand, it was wild. I shook his hand. I said, Mr. President Eric Mintel, again, I said, because I knew he had a connection with Dave Brubeck. And I said, we have a mutual friend in Dave Brubeck. And he said, oh, Dave Brubeck. Well, that was the very first jazz concert I ever went to see with my father when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So it was a really cool connection there. And I gave him a CD we had at the time. And then I felt the slap on my shoulder. And here was Sherry was telling me to turn around, and there was Michelle Obama right over my shoulder, and I got a chance to meet them, and it was really, really cool.
It's just so surreal is the word for it. I mean, I just can't even imagine. Like
it was really cool, and I'm sure it opened up a lot of doors for us, and for me and that kind of thing. So it was good, because I mean, talk about the history of the White House.
Yeah.
When we walked in there, immediately hit me that when in 1998, when we first walked in there, it was that rich history. And when you walk in, the floors are creaking like, it was like the floors in, I'm sure you've been there, the Old North Church.
Yeah.
And when you're walking there, how old and spongy they are, they're all old. And so it was just like, man, just thinking about all of the historical figures that have been in this place. And it was just amazing.
I bet you wish you had Dominic that time.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dominic wasn't even in the mix at that point. But that would have been really cool. So it was a really, really cool experience. And I had in 1998, I had another quartet that I had taken with me, and then 2011, I had the quartet that I am currently with. We've been together 20 years now. This group, I say, we've been together longer than most marriages.
Yeah, for sure.
And we still like each other. So, so we're gonna be we're after this month. I've been doing 28 days in a row for this year, and it's been phenomenal. Like doing a lot of talks and premieres and things like that this month. And then in November, December, we'll be doing a huge holiday run of shows where we do our Charlie Brown Christmas concerts.
Oh wow!
And originals. We do a lot of originals too. So we've got a lot of dates in November, December that we'll be doing as well. And then we're back at it again with the paranormal in January. I've got like 3 or 4 videos that are slated to be shot in that time frame. So we're getting ready for next Halloween already. Yeah,
well, this is the season. This is a lot of my friends. It's busy for me too. It's just it's just overwhelming in a way. It's really crazy how big spooky season, as they call it now, has gotten. It's wild.
Oh yeah.
And so you got the book. People can find that on Amazon, of course. Eric Mintel Investigates, right? Is it all kind of the same?
Yeah. And I wish you know what? I don't know if I have. Well, you can't see it anyway, so it's doing it. Yeah. But this is this is it right here. It's on Amazon. Eric Mintel Investigates Casebook Investigations. But it's on Amazon. And then I also wrote a jazz book, believe it or not. I wrote a book called How I Got to Play at the White House Twice, ... A Jazz Man's Guide to Getting the Gig. And it's basically about booking gigs. How to go about booking gigs. So Tim, I mean, it just goes to show you. So that book, I've sold 2 books. The paranormal book, I've sold over 100.
Oh, wow.
So,
there you go. Yeah.
Talks and everything like that. So but I'm going to try to make the jazz book. I want to try to make it part of a curriculum in some high schools and some in some colleges and stuff as well. Cause it's my process of how I book gigs. Cause that's one of the biggest
helpful. I might end up picking that up myself just for,
I think, yeah, exactly. It's like whatever, we're doing, it all boils down to one thing: sales.
Yeah.
And who you're talking to and how you approach people. So I've always had the gift of gab. And it's like, as the guys always tell me, I got the silver tongue and the brass balls. So
there you go. Oh, I like that. That's good. That's good. And Eric Mintel investigates.org is the website. And just put in Eric Mintel Investigates. You've done a great job of branding this whole thing so people can find you very easily. And go and check out his stuff, folks. He's doing some really cool stuff. And as I said, you're out there. You're doing a lot. So I really have a lot of respect for the hustle. It's
thanks, man.
I'm just like blown away. I'm like, this guy never slows down. I get tired. Just a testament, folks, who won't see this necessarily. They're listening to it. We're doing this interview like at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, which is unheard of for me because Eric's so busy. That's how wild it is. So check out his stuff. Eric Mintel Investigates. And hopefully there's a lot of people bring back. I hope you come back to Exeter is the point I'm trying to make. I hope I see you up at Exeter.
I don't know
the festival, and if not, just to come up for if you're going to come up and mess around and do something, let me know. Definitely if you're up in the New England area, man.
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah, I think I talked to Connie. I don't think I'm going to be on because they like to switch it up with
exactly. So
I think it'll be probably maybe every other year. So, but yeah, I'm looking forward to doing it again. And my buddy Peter Robbins was really instrumental in getting us up there. Yep. And I've got a lot of other. What I wanted to say too is Tim. If you guys and your listeners are around, March 8th of 2025, we're going to have the second annual Bucks County Paracon, which is going to happen right here in Bucks County at Bucks County Community College on March 8th, 2025. We've got Dave Schrader is going to be speaking.
Oh, very cool.
We've got Stan Gordon. Awesome. We've got Charles Halt from the Rendlesham Forest UFO.
Wow. Yeah,
We've got Tom Carey. We've got me and Dominic and Jim Krug is going to be talking. Also, Eric Altman, who's also with Stan. Yep. So we've got a lot of really good people that are going to be speaking this year. We're going to do a panel discussion at the end of the day with all the speakers. Last year was amazing. We had for our first year, we had over 1,000 people came out.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. I thought we'd have 100. It was amazing what happened. All of the vendors sold out of their stuff. All of the authors sold all of their books, the food vendors, and everybody left very happy. So if you ever want to make a trip down, Tim, March 8th, 2025, man, Bucks County Paranormal Paracon. So
I'll keep it in mind. Awesome. Well, Eric, I can't thank you enough, man. I had a blast chatting with you. And like I said, I hope that we cross paths again in the future. I have a feeling we will because you're out there all the time, all over the place. So,
oh, man, absolutely. When we come up to New England, if we're doing something, which I know we're going to be doing, I will reach out to you and we'll see.
Yeah, definitely let me know.
We'll see if we can get you on site.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I would definitely be down for that.
All right.
Thank you very much, Eric. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.